Hey guys, tonight we start with a moment that shatters the quiet calm you thought you'd have forever. Your husband drops the bombshell. He's selling your home. Not for some emergency or a fresh start for both of you, but for his girlfriend. That sinking feeling grips you as you imagine everything you built. All those shared Sunday mornings and quiet evenings, slipping through your fingers. You're standing in the living room, light fading through the curtains, and it hits you hard. You probably won't survive this heartbreak without a fight. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is right now. It's like sharing a secret in the quiet night. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge through the house, each step stirring echoes of laughter and long-forgotten promises. The wallpaper peels in places, a stubborn reminder that even the strongest walls can crack. Did you know that in the 18th century, homes were seen as an extension of one's soul? The idea was that when a house fell into disrepair, it reflected a personal failing. Historians still argue whether this belief shaped society's treatment of widows and abandoned spouses. And here you are, feeling like a ghost wandering your own home. Funny how you can live somewhere for decades and still notice the smallest things, like the way the kitchen light flickers just before you decide to leave. Or how your husband never fixed that loose doorknob, as if ignoring it would make it disappear. Maybe he thought the house would hold him forever. Spoiler alert, it won't. You're standing by the front door, the cold metal handle cool under your palm, when the reality sinks deeper. This isn't just about selling a house. It's about losing your sanctuary, the place where your life unfolded, where your memories are stitched into every corner. You can almost hear the walls whispering stories of your laughter, your tears, and all the quiet moments in between. But now, those whispers feel like echoes from someone else's life. Homes have always been more than bricks and mortar. In ancient Rome, for instance, the domus was a symbol of status and family legacy. Losing it wasn't just a financial hit. It was a loss of identity. Scholars still debate whether this cultural weight made Roman women more resilient or trapped by their circumstances. You realize your feelings aren't just personal, they're part of a long history of attachment and loss. The scent of the old house mingles with a faint trace of lavender, your go-to calming spray. It's ironic how you try to make the place feel like a refuge, yet now it feels like a cage. The silence grows heavier, broken only by the distant hum of traffic and the occasional chirp of a restless bird outside. You catch yourself wondering if the neighbors have noticed the shift, or if life around you just goes on, oblivious. Here is a quirky thought. Did you know that in some cultures, people believed houses had spirits that could protect or curse the inhabitants? You might joke that your house must be the grumpiest ghost ever, silently judging the betrayal happening inside. It's a strange comfort, imagining the walls taking sides. And as you linger in this bittersweet moment, a question nudges at your mind. Historians still argue whether the idea of home has changed more in the last century or over millennia. For you, it's a question with an answer that stings. You find yourself pacing the living room, the worn wooden floor creaking softly beneath your feet, each step stirring a mixture of frustration and disbelief. How did things unravel so quietly, so completely? Your husband's announcement hangs in the air like an unwelcome fog, thick and suffocating. It wasn't just about selling the house. It was about selling out the life you built together. The betrayal seeps into the corners, creeping into your bones. It's strange to think that people have always used homes to anchor their personal stories. In medieval times, castles weren't just fortresses. They were the heart of family power and protection. But even then, nobles dealt with betrayals. Alliances broken over a whispered secret or a stolen glance. Historians still debate whether these betrayals were driven more by political strategy or personal desires. Now, your own modern-day betrayal feels like a page torn from that old book. You glance at the photo frames scattered on the mantelpiece, smiling faces frozen in happier times. A quirky fact surfaces. Did you know some families used to carry portraits from generation to generation, almost like talismans? Maybe that explains why you clutch that framed wedding photo a little tighter tonight. It's not just nostalgia, it's a desperate grasp for something real amidst the chaos. Outside, the evening light dims, casting long shadows that creep along the walls like silent witnesses. You wonder if your husband realizes how much more than a house you're losing tonight. It's the foundation of your shared life, now crumbling beneath your feet. The quiet hum of the neighborhood feels almost mocking, life going on as if nothing has changed, while your world tilts dangerously off balance. You sit down heavily on the couch, the cushions sighing beneath you, and replay the conversation in your mind like a broken record. His voice was calm, almost detached, as if he was announcing the weather, not selling the roof over your memories. You remember that in ancient Rome, the paterfamilias held absolute authority over the household, including property decisions, sometimes even deciding the fate of entire families. Yet even then, the emotions tied to home and hearth ran deep, spilling into the very stones of their villas. Here you are, centuries later, still grappling with the same raw emotions under different ceilings. The house you live in isn't just bricks and mortar. It's where you fell asleep on lazy Sunday mornings, where the scent of coffee still lingers in the kitchen air, where your laughter once echoed off the walls. Now, all that intimacy feels threatened by a signature on a piece of paper. A quirky little tidbit. In some cultures, people believed houses held the spirits of past inhabitants, and selling a home meant negotiating with those spirits to ensure good luck. Maybe that's why you have that odd knot in your stomach. Like the house itself is unsettled by what's coming. Historians still argue whether emotional attachments to property stem more from personal memories or cultural tradition. But for you, the answer is crystal clear. This house is the silent witness to your life's chapters, and the thought of handing it over to someone else is unbearable. Outside, a cool breeze drifts through an open window, carrying the distant sounds of evening life. You take a deep breath, tasting the bittersweet mix of loss and defiance. The battle lines have been drawn, and you're not ready to fold just yet. The next morning, the sunlight spills through the curtains, casting long shadows across the floor where your footsteps echo a little louder than usual. You move through the rooms, tracing the familiar contours as if memorizing a map before a journey you never wanted to take. You think about the Great Fires of London in 1666, when entire neighborhoods vanished overnight, and how people rebuilt their lives from ashes, holding on to hope, grudgingly, piece by piece. That resilience hums quietly beneath your skin. You find yourself staring at the hallway mirror, watching your reflection flicker with uncertainty. Did your husband ever pause to consider what this meant for you, for your shared past? In the 1800s, some women were legally bound to their husbands' property decisions, powerless to stop them. But today, you still have a voice that's about to roar. You recall a strange fact you once read. In medieval Japan, families would tattoo their homes with protective symbols, believing this kept away evil spirits and bad luck. You laugh softly to yourself. Maybe you need a tattoo on your front door now to ward off this unexpected betrayal. Historians still debate whether personal agency has truly increased for women over the centuries, or if some power struggles are just more subtle these days. Whatever the answer, you know this is your fight, not just over bricks and mortar, but over respect and recognition. A bird sings outside almost defiantly, as if to remind you that life goes on, even when the ground shifts beneath your feet. You straighten your shoulders. This is only the beginning. You sit down at the kitchen table, your fingers tracing the grain of the wood, worn smooth by years of shared meals and whispered conversations. It's strange how a place can feel so alive one day and so foreign the next. You think about the Great Depression, when families huddled around kitchens like this, clinging to whatever warmth they could find amid uncertainty. That era's resilience feels distant yet familiar. There's a flicker of defiance growing inside you, sparked by memories you never expected to revisit. Did you know that in ancient Rome, women sometimes used coded messages hidden in everyday objects to communicate secretly? You almost smile. If only you could send a note to your past self, warning about today's storm. Historians still argue whether these small acts of resistance truly shifted power or simply delayed the inevitable. Either way, you're learning your own version of that quiet rebellion now. You hear your phone buzz, a message from your husband, short and cold. It feels like a slap, but you refuse to react immediately. Instead, you focus on the hum of the refrigerator, the soft ticking of the clock, the subtle scent of brewed coffee lingering in the air. These little details anchor you, remind you that this moment, though painful, will pass. You remind yourself, this kitchen, this house, is more than his decisions. It's the backdrop to your story, and you're far from finished writing it. You wander into the living room, fingers brushing the faded fabric of the couch where countless evenings were spent sharing laughter and secrets. It's incredible to think how this very room witnessed decades of your life unfolding. Birthdays, quiet nights, even the occasional argument that now seems trivial. You remember how, during the Renaissance, homes like this were the stage for both grand celebrations and personal dramas, a microcosm of human emotion. Here's a quirky fact. In medieval Europe, some people believed that sitting near a hearth could cleanse your soul and chase away evil spirits. Maybe that's why you've always found comfort in the warmth of this place, a refuge from the chaos outside. Scholars still debate whether these old beliefs were truly spiritual or just clever ways to explain the world before science stepped in. Either way, the hearth, real or imagined, holds a special place in your heart now. Your husband's words replay in your mind, but you choose silence, letting the soft creak of the floorboards and the gentle sway of the curtains fill the room instead. You notice a small crack in the window frame, a flaw you'd overlooked before. Somehow it feels symbolic, imperfect, but standing strong. You breathe deeply, grounding yourself in this moment, knowing that while he may want to sell this house, your memories and your strength aren't for sale. You find yourself standing in the kitchen, the heart of your home where countless meals were prepared with love and sometimes a dash of chaos. The faint scent of old spices lingers, mixing with the faint hum of the refrigerator, a modern appliance standing in contrast to the rustic charm of this space. Kitchens have always been central to family life. Historians trace communal cooking back to ancient civilizations where fire and food bonded communities. Here's an odd tidbit. In Victorian England, it was common to have a spirit safe in the kitchen, a locked box where servants kept liquor to prevent theft. Imagine the suspicion simmering alongside the stew pots. You smile to yourself, thinking how different your own kitchen dynamics are, yet how the underlying stories of trust and betrayal echo through time. Some academics still debate whether the kitchen was more of a sanctuary or a battleground in historical homes. Either way, this space is charged with your history, memories of laughter, arguments, and quiet mornings sipping coffee as sunlight filtered through lace curtains. You open a drawer and find a forgotten recipe card, edges curled and stained. It's a small relic of your shared past, yet it feels like a bridge to your own resilience. You don't need his permission to hold on to what truly matters. The house may change hands, but you are rooted, stronger than any brick or beam. You stand by the window, watching the street outside, the quiet neighborhood where your life unfolded like a slow, well-worn novel. Streets have witnessed everything from ancient processions to modern protests. The Romans paved roads not just for travel, but to impose order and power. It's funny how your street feels just as commanding in its own small way, each house a chapter, each neighbor a character in the story of your days. Here's a curious fact. Some cities once had walking curfews where no one was allowed out after sunset lest the shadows become conspirators. You chuckle softly, imagining how that might have changed your nightly routine, or his. Historians debate whether these curfews were more about safety or control, much like the control he's trying to exert now. You notice how the fading daylight casts long shadows, and for a moment you feel both trapped and free. Trapped by the weight of his betrayal, but free because you are beginning to rewrite your own story. You trace the outline of the window frame, feeling the cool glass against your fingertips. This view, this small patch of the world, remains yours to own, no matter who claims the walls around it. The phone rings, unexpected, like a sudden breeze stirring old leaves. You pick it up, voice steady despite the storm inside. It's a call from an old friend you haven't spoken to in years, a reminder that life moves beyond the walls and the chaos. Ancient societies relied on messengers and signals. Today, a call can shift your entire mood in seconds, bridging past and present with a simple voice. Here's a quirky detail. In Victorian times, calling someone without prior notice was considered rude, even scandalous. Imagine if your husband had to ask permission before dropping his bombshell. How differently this might have played out. Yet historians still argue whether the etiquette of communication truly shaped society, or was just a polite veneer over deeper power struggles. You let the thought wash over you, holding onto the warmth of the voice on the line. Maybe, just maybe, this is your turning point, the first step toward reclaiming your story. Outside, the world hums softly. indifferent, yet inviting. You breathe in, the familiar mix of night air and distant city lights filling your lungs, reminding you that the night is long, but so is your resilience. The next morning feels oddly calm, as if the night swept away the worst of your fears but left the sharp edges of reality exposed. You move through your home like a ghost, the familiar creaks and shadows reminding you of promises made and broken. Houses have witnessed countless dramas. The Romans believed walls absorbed the emotions of their inhabitants, a theory modern architects still debate. You find yourself standing before the window, tracing the patterns of light on the floor. Did you ever notice how sunlight reveals what the darkness tries to hide? It's a little strange that your husband didn't see this coming. After all, secrets rarely stay buried under the same roof for long. A funny thought crosses your mind. In medieval times, people would hang herbs to ward off evil spirits. Maybe you should hang a sign that says, "Beware, heartbreaker inside." If only life came with a warning label. Historians still argue whether betrayal is more painful because of the act itself, or the quiet moments when you realize it's been happening all along. You decide to focus on the quiet strength in your chest, the steady beat that refuses to falter. Outside, the city wakes, indifferent but full of potential. You sip your coffee, the bitterness grounding you, preparing you for whatever comes next. You decide it's time to confront him, not with anger, but with calm resolve. Walking down the hallway, each step echoes like a drumbeat of determination. The ancient Greeks believed that confrontation was the gateway to catharsis, cleansing the soul and restoring balance. Yet some modern psychologists still debate whether confrontation truly heals or simply prolongs pain. As you enter the living room, you find him packing. The sight is almost surreal. His hurried movements, the frantic shoving of belongings into boxes, as if trying to erase years in minutes. It reminds you of a story you once read about Victorian-era divorces, where social appearances mattered more than personal truth. A curious fact: some aristocrats would fake illnesses to avoid scandal during separations. You clear your throat softly, and he looks up, startled. There's no room for dramatic outbursts here. Instead, you offer a small, almost ironic smile. "Selling our home for her," you say quietly. "I didn't think you'd be so careless." The sarcasm is a thin veil over your deeper disappointment. He stammers, unable to meet your gaze. The room feels heavy, like the eye of a storm where time pauses. You realize this is your moment, not to plead or beg, but to reclaim your story. And as you stand there, you wonder, will this confrontation change anything? Or is it just another chapter in a long, complicated history of broken promises? The days that follow unfold like a slow-motion replay of every awkward goodbye you've ever witnessed in old movies. You watch him leave with a suitcase that looks too small for all the years you spent together. It's oddly reminiscent of ancient nomads abandoning their camps, fleeting, uncertain, but driven by an unspoken necessity. Historians still argue whether these departures were acts of survival or surrender. You find yourself wandering through the now empty rooms, your fingers tracing memories on the walls, the worn corners of furniture, the faded scent lingering like a forgotten perfume. There's a peculiar comfort in the quiet, a strange companionship in the emptiness. It reminds you of that odd tradition among some indigenous tribes, where homes were left empty for a year to honor the past before moving on. Oddly enough, this emptiness feels less like loss and more like a chance to breathe again. You realize that what seemed like an ending might actually be a new beginning. The heartache softens, replaced by a curious hope, almost like when explorers first set foot on unknown shores, uncertain but eager. And as you stand by the window watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery hues, you silently ask yourself, what will you build next? How will your story unfold when the past finally becomes just that? The past. The morning after feels strangely different, as if the house itself is holding its breath. You move through the space like a ghost, the silence almost too loud, yet somehow soothing. It's a stark contrast to the chaotic whirlwind of emotions from the day before. Did you know that ancient Romans believed silence in a home was a sign of respect and renewal? Historians still debate whether this was superstition or wisdom. You find yourself opening drawers, untouched since the announcement, discovering forgotten notes and trinkets that tell stories you'd almost forgotten. It's like finding a time capsule buried beneath the everyday. One quirky fact. In medieval times, people used to hide messages inside furniture to communicate secretly. A primitive Instagram, if you will. The realization dawns slowly that this space, once shared, is now entirely yours again. And with that comes a quiet power, a chance to redefine not just your home, but yourself. Maybe you'll paint the walls a new color, or finally get that indoor garden you've always talked about. Change feels possible, and strangely hopeful. You lean against the doorway and breathe deeply, feeling the weight of what's lost, but also the lightness of what remains. What will you choose to build from these ashes? The story is yours now. You sit down with a cup of tea, the steam curling lazily upward as the afternoon sunlight filters through the curtains. There's a peculiar comfort in this quiet moment, a soft reminder that endings often lead to beginnings. The Victorian era, known for its strict social codes, paradoxically embraced tea time as a sacred pause, an invitation to reflect and reset. Historians still argue whether these rituals shaped society or merely mirrored its deeper needs. You notice a tiny crack in the windowsill, a flaw you'd never seen before. It feels symbolic, imperfect, real, and entirely yours. Funny how sometimes it's the small fractures that reveal the strongest light. Did you know that some cultures believe cracks in their homes let the spirit of change flow freely? It's a hopeful thought, like the universe giving you permission to heal and grow. As the day gently fades, you make a silent promise to yourself. This chapter, though painful, will be the soil for your new roots. You realize strength isn't about holding on to what's gone, but knowing when to let go. You smile softly, knowing this story is far from over. The house, your heart, your life, they are all ready for what comes next. Now, with the sun setting low, you close your eyes, feeling the rhythm of your own breath, and whisper a quiet goodnight to the past.